Hello everyone, again this is Carl Goldfield with Brand Chats. We're here today joined by Mark Fidelman of Evolve. We're going to be talking about how the best companies are increasing their revenues, and he's going to tell us a lot of different methods and tactics that people are using to just improve their business, their streams of business, and it's really great to have Mark with us. Welcome, Mark. For anyone that doesn't know Mark, he is the he writes a column called Socialize for Forbes magazine. He has a critically acclaimed and best-selling book of the same name, and is the CEO of Evolve. Evolve is a company that focuses on influence and engagement management, and he's going to get to tell you more about that as I pass things over to him. Mark, you here?
Hello, everyone. How the best companies are increasing revenue by analyzing, socializing, and mobilizing their communities. This is a subject near and dear to me. I've been writing about this. I've been talking about this whenever somebody gives me the opportunity, and I wrote a book about it. And I've actually gone out and studied over 150 companies about how they're doing it best, and I've tried to distill this down to about a 45-minute presentation. And afterwards, if you want to reach out to me, email me, or just follow me on Forbes, you can get even more information. So with that, let's get started. Who am I? Carl's already properly introduced me. Been studying this, been doing this for about 3 years. I finally have some examples of how everybody's tied together, the analyzing, socializing, and mobilizing. We're going to talk about those, both from a political perspective to a large company perspective to a small company perspective. Frequently I get criticized because I don't talk about small companies. Well, I've got an example now because my company works with them on how you do all this. So you're going to learn a lot today. It's going to be fast, but you know, there are other resources like the book that you can look at in order to get a real detailed examination of how to do all this. So let's get started. We are living in the age of the social customer. I know a lot of people are challenging me on that. They still feel like we're in this information age. I've said we've moved beyond it. And just let's look at the last few decades. You know, most of the sales done in the 80s were basically local, one-to-one. You might have some telecommunications, might have been selling things on the phone. But for the most part, it was more of a local sales environment. In the 90s, you got email and direct marketing, so that opened things up a little bit. The world became a little bit smaller. In the 2000s, we really started to study the funnel. We started to use analytics, but primarily around how people were interacting with emails and perhaps websites, and we tried to measure and improve it. Now we're in this social engagement. Now there's more people on social networks than ever before. There's been a missing link to why we haven't monetized this properly. That missing link is big data and what we're doing with that data, and I'm going to show you why. But that's coming, and that's coming fast and furious. The other aspect of this is mobile and how you use mobile technologies in order to increase your revenue. So that's the goal today for me, is to convince you, whether you're a large company, small company, what have you, that this is the future. There's already some primary examples I'm going to talk about, and you've got to start preparing for it now. Okay, so why now? Why now? Great question. So now more than ever, technology is making it easier for consumers to engage, not only with each other, but with brands, and consumers are really taking control, haven't they? They really are in control of what's going on out there. It's no longer the brands pushing messaging, pushing their thoughts, their philosophies down to consumers. It's actually flipped. The consumers are now in control, especially when they get together in these large groups and they form these advocacy groups or whatever it is that they're doing in order to promote whatever is of interest to them. So it's really flip-flopped, and a lot of brands still haven't realized that, but they will sooner or later. But brands, you know, brands will get back up off the mat here eventually, and I'm going to show you why. So, you know, so what's the problem? Right now, you know, you still have a lot of organizations that are what I call spraying and praying. They're just throwing ads out there. A lot of consumers look at that as spam because it's not resonating with them, or it comes across as unnecessary. Why are you sending me this stuff? And a lot of people are getting ticked off about this stuff. You see this all the time. And the other aspect of what's going on, and there's kind of a major shift in commerce occurring, and it's not as noticeable as I think it should be, and this is why I talk about it a lot. But right now, if you look at commerce online, 80% of it is still done with laptops and desktops and what have you. But and I mean rapidly, just within the last few years, a lot of commerce has been pushing to mobile devices, whether it's your phone or your iPad or your Android device or your Windows device. And this is going to equalize, Gartner believes, in 2016. So it'll be half and half. So whether you're small business, big business, you have to start preparing for this shift in commerce. The other big major change that we're seeing, and why you've got to go to this analysis, socialize and mobilize type of business philosophy going forward, is we've already seen this massive ad spend shift, right? You're looking at just all of traditional media, whether it's newspapers, magazines, any print media. Google has already surpassed, and this happened last year in 2012, Google alone, the company Google, has more advertising revenue than all of the U.S. magazines and newspapers combined. I mean, that's incredible. And that's just one indication of what's going to happen here going forward. And, you know, really, it's you look at it, it's kind of the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, YouTube is the second largest search engine on the web. 50% of of their users, they've got about 300 million users, go back once a week. So YouTube is a very big channel for brands, small businesses, what have you, to get their word out. You already know there's about 1 billion people on Facebook, 500 million on Twitter. The bottom line here is that if you look at all the social networks and what's going on, this is the place of the future where businesses got to understand how to connect and communicate and message people on these social networks, because that's going to be the playing field of the future. And if you look at just the demographic, the younger demographic, 18 to 35, 96% of them are on social networks. So where do businesses have to be in the future? And of course it's going to be social networks in one way, one shape, one form or another. It doesn't have to be all of them. You know, I kind of promote 2 or 3, but businesses are going to have to be there. And if they're not, then they're going to run into some trouble. And I'm going to talk about why here in just a minute. So let's go to one of our first examples. And I argue today that we're in the social age. We've moved on beyond the information age, and we're in the social age, and that is where people have taken the power into their own hands about what they want to do, what actions that they want to take, and everything's on their terms, not the brand's terms. And so I've coined this formula where social business equals internal social plus external social over social data. And don't worry about the formula right now, we'll explain it. But internal social means the businesses have to create social networks internally. Externally, they have to participate in social networks, whether it's controlled by the brand or not. But it's all got to be understood by what data is coming into the organization. Okay, and here's a prime example of what I mean. I can crystallize it for you in the last campaign. Whether or not you voted for Obama, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is how he used data, how he socialized the information he learned from that data, and how he mobilized people to act on that data was remarkable. And this is the future of business, at least in the next 5 years until something else comes up. So let's talk a little bit about what he did. First of all, he gathered quite a few followers on all the important social networks for politics. No question, he outdid Romney on this, and he used it to his advantage. But a lot of brands, a lot of companies have a lot of followers, but they're not able to properly monetize it. For Obama and his campaign, it was about getting votes, right? but he had the people on the social networks. He had the ability to connect with them. But what was even more important for them, very smartly, was that they looked at the data that was occurring on the social networks, whether they were interacting with them or not, in order to understand who their user base, or who their potential voters and volunteers were. And they consolidated all this information. Right now, if you go into most organizations, all of this data, if it's even being measured properly or not, is kind of siloed. And it's not consolidated. So the first thing the Obama campaign did was consolidate all this information across all the social networks, all the email campaigns that were run, and they started experimenting. And I like to say, and we'll cover this a little bit later, they would try 200 different experiments to see what messaging worked with each of their potential voters. And once they found messaging that worked, they narrow in on that and they keep using it over and over again. And then they physically separated and segmented the data into demographic groups. And they tried messaging, again, about 200 examples each and every time, until they found the right message per demographic group, whether it was somebody in a geographic location or an age bracket, what have you. So they, at the end of this, and this is just the data aspect of it, we haven't even gone on to the social and mobile aspect of it, at the end of all this experimentation, they had a pretty good idea, depending on who you were, how and the right messaging to get you to go to the voting booth. Just remarkable. Now let's translate that real quickly into business. I mean, imagine if you could do that with your product. If you could sort out the demographics of your potential customer, target them with the right message, and get them to go into the store or online or call you up to buy your product or service. That's where it's all headed. And they did this in November 2012. All this stuff just hasn't pushed into the business world yet, but it's definitely coming. So let's look at what they did next. What they did next was they took all this messaging that they learned from collecting data, analyzing the data, and they started socializing that data from volunteer to potential voter, and from potential voter to swing state voters, and swing state voters to other swing state voters. And they were socializing messages that they knew were working, because they'd already tested it 200 different messages and variations of those messages in order to get it right. And they knew if you were friends are probably most like you, so they had the right demographic information. So when you shared something on Facebook, chances are your friends on Facebook shared some kind of demographic or well, some kind of relationship to you that was very similar to you. Chances are it didn't always occur that way. So they knew that. So when let's go to Mobilize now, they actually looked at their volunteers in these swing states, and there were over 8,000 of them. I think there was, well, I don't want to quote the right number, but there was a lot of volunteers. And they look at the demographic and the behavioral aspects of each of their volunteers. And what they did is they said, okay, you're most like these potential voters. So we want you, using this mobile app, to go out and talk to these people, physically knock on the door and talk to these people, because they're most like you. You're in the same demographic group, maybe you're in the same income bracket, and get them to commit to going to the voting booth. And these are all, they only did this in the swing states, so maybe this happened to you. So it turns out that if there's somebody that goes to your door that's a lot like you and asks for your commitment to vote, that if you said yes, they tracked this, about 80% of them actually did on voting day, on election day. And the reason and the rationale is, and this is more human psychology, is that you don't want to disappoint people that are very much like you after you've given them a commitment. And that was the key aspect of what they did. They used data to find people very similar, those volunteers, very similar to the potential voters, and they got them to commit to go vote. In fact, they increased the number of votes in those swing states by $1 million people, over 2008. And hence, if you even talk to the Obama campaign, because I did, I actually got all this information from the Obama campaign, they won they credit this program for winning the election. So when you look at this and how it applies to business, I think this is going to be the new normal for business. That we've done a great job, most businesses anyway, of getting a bunch of followers on these social networks, hopefully the right ones. Now, there's a long way to go, granted. Some of us haven't done it. Some of us have done it and haven't realized, okay, how do I make money from all this? And the how is by using the data that you can potentially pull from these social networks. So you have the followers, you've got the social information, you've got to aggregate it, just like the Obama campaign did, into one database. And once you learn from all that information and you test messaging to all those demographic groups, it will turn into revenue. There's no question. And that is the new normal going forward. Now, there's not a lot of companies that are doing it. Target's one. We'll talk about what Target's doing. There's not a lot of companies doing it. So we're in the very early stages of this. But I'm telling you right now, the tools are available. The information is out there. We're only, according to IBM, only the best businesses are only looking at 10% of this information and making it actionable. So how's it working now? This is kind of an age test for you that are out there. This is, of course, Sergeant Schultz of Hogan's Heroes. So how it's working now is that most managers, most people in businesses, large or small, are kind of the I hear nothing, I see nothing, I know nothing crowd, right? They don't really understand this. They were raised, well, their career was built on an old playbook. It's not on this new playbook. This new playbook is for the most part, way out of their leagues. And so they're, thankfully, most of them aren't stopping this from occurring, but they have no idea what's going on, and so they're just ignoring it. And that's why we're not getting a lot of traction in some of these organizations. Some organizations we get great traction, but for most, they're not getting a lot of traction because they're not looking at this holistically, and they don't understand all the pieces that go into making a business of the 21st century successful. That's going to change, though. So let's look at the new ways that everything is going to change going forward. And I don't expect all businesses just to tomorrow jump all over this, but I'm going to show you what the best businesses are doing today and how they're profiting from it. And this is kind of their secret sauce. They don't do a lot of talking about it. I do kind of outlining it in the book, but I'm going to kind of summarize it with 7 key things that I learned by talking to over 150 executives that are doing similar programs like this today. So for them, data is key. I mean, if you look at Target, you look at IBM, you look at what the Obama campaign did, and kind of tangentially IBM, if you look at the last couple of years, they've grown more in market cap than the entire market value of HP. Just in 2 years, IBM has grown more than the entire value of HP. And a lot of this is credited to becoming more of a social business and using data to understand how to take action. And so you look at most companies in the lower left-hand quadrant, you look at what the best companies that I've been able to interview are doing, and there's more of them, but these are the standouts. This is what they look at going forward in terms of being highly competitive. They look at all the data, and the more rich the data is, and the more aggregated the data is in one spot, the better their ability to take intelligent action in order to get new customers. So my first kind of big change is big data has purpose, little data has hope. I mean, if you talk to some of these companies that worked on the Obama campaign, a lot of them feel pretty confident that they can look down any street as long as they have the information about people on that street and the data, and they're looking at the social networks. Many of them feel very confident that they can go and tell you which houses need a new mattress. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. I mean, one, you don't buy a mattress all that often. But two, they feel just based on behavior, based on information they're getting on social networks, based on listening to what's going on just on the people from those streets, that they match that behavior with other people that have bought mattresses, let's say, in the last 6 months. It's really quite remarkable what's going on. It's just pattern behavior matching, and they're using social data in order to make that connection and connect the dots. Pretty remarkable. Second thing they're doing, and kind of an example of data, is what IBM's doing with trends. So they're looking at trends. They have this formula and this pattern that they look for to see what's going to become a trend or not. And one of the things they've identified is the SteamPunk trend. So they look at data, they see what's trending, who the influencers are that are talking about it, who the companies are that are picking up on this, and they're able to connect the dots and say, look, this SteamPunk trend, which is basically the old being married with the new in fashion, is going to be the next greatest thing. IBM takes that information and they give it to their retailers to start to prepare for this trending information. It doesn't have to be limited to a big IBM company that's got all the tools that are out there. You can actually do this today by looking at the data and identifying trends in your industry, and you will be more competitive because you're going to get ahead of it. The other thing I saw within these organizations that they all like to create these leaderboards. I wouldn't say all, I'd say about 70% of them, and I know this is controversial, I know it's controversial, but what they found is that people like to compare themselves to everybody else, and then the mean. And most of them will say, okay, I'm going to raise my game because I know I'm being measured, I know it's visible, and I don't need to be a superstar standout, but I want to show that I'm committed to this organization, I'm committed to the cause, and I'm committed to improving myself within this organization over time. So a lot of them are using leaderboards by objective and posting them internally in a public spot so that everybody can see it. This, they believe, this concept is helping that organization with internal goals and objectives. 3, and we talked about this with the Obama campaign, a lot of them are starting to do hyper A/B testing. They don't pretend to know what the best message is for the right audience. So if you look at the Obama campaign, it was one that I found pretty remarkable. They ran over 240 A/B tests. If you don't know what an A/B test is, it's simply 2 different variations of, in this example, it's an email, and they look to see who clicks on it, who views it, who takes action with it. And over time, after running a bunch of these A/B tests, in this example 240, they find the best message for their particular objective. And what they found is A/B testing versus non-A/B testing, they became 50% more effective in raising campaign contributions for the Obama campaign. And this won't work for most businesses unless you have somebody famous, but the most successful line of the campaign was, hey. It just started with hey, colon, and whatever message Obama wanted to put out there. But most people opened this particular email because it felt like it was coming from Obama himself. So those are little things that they learned over time. Who would have guessed ahead of time, without the 240 A/B tests, that hey would be the most popular word to start off the subject line of an email in order to get people to open it. Quite remarkable. The other thing companies are doing, they're not just putting out coupons, they're socializing these coupons. And this is a unique coupon, and one that I've kind of started using with my clients, is that this coupon grows in value the more it's shared. So if you share this particular coupon, it goes up in value. So if I use a Miracle Whip coupon and I claim it with Facebook and I share that with somebody else, it'll be worth $1.25 to the next, my first circle of friends. And from there, it maybe becomes $1.50, $1.75. I don't know where it stops. I haven't gone through this entirely. But this is something new that I saw with some of the organizations that I'm using, is that the value of a coupon or the value of a discount or the value of something grows as that social network shares that particular piece of information, coupon, discount, with their friends and followers. So that helps a small viral effect take place, because people want to give away something that increases in value, it turns out, with their friends. So, influencers, and I'll talk about what the Obama campaign did with influencers. Influencers, for them, they used Sarah Jessica Parker, they used a few other celebrities that were out there, and they knew that these celebrities influenced a certain demographic of their target audience. So if you look at, for example, Sarah Jessica Parker, they knew that she influenced women between the ages of 30 and 45, and those women were more apt to spend money and give to the Obama campaign if she were attending an event or a dinner or what have you with the president, because they not only liked the president, but they felt an affinity to Sarah Jessica Parker because she's been in their lives via her HBO show for a long time. So for business, because this is mostly about businesses increasing revenue, there's a company called NetBase who did a study, and they found out that Jason Falls was very influential to the people that would potentially buy their product. And the product was just, for them, it was this guide which ultimately would get them to hopefully buy the NetBase product or service. So because they put Jason Falls' image on all of these campaigns, the click-through rate went up dramatically. And there's many ways to use influencers, and I have a whole nother section or a whole other presentation on this. In fact, that's what my company does, is we work with influential people. But just think of it in terms of using influencers to get to their followers in order to promote your product or service. This is a whole new emerging field. You couldn't even be a citizen, what people call a citizen influencer, up until a few years ago. Social media has made that possible. The sixth thing I saw businesses do is they started to mobilize their advertising. We're still early here, but you look at P.F. Chang's and what they did last year during the Chinese New Year. Now this is kind of accidental, but they figured out that if they looked at P.F. Chang's around the country and they drew a 25-mile circle around that, maybe it was less than that, don't quote me on that, 10-mile, let's just say, and you were on Twitter, it would advertise on Twitter, it'd be at the top of your screen on your mobile device that, hey, you go to P.F. Chang's right now and we'll give you 25% off. And oh, by the way, if you bring your friends, we'll bring you 30 or 35 or 40% off. The campaign was a huge success. I think they had over 1 million people across the country take advantage of this on New Year's Day. It was so powerful, in fact, they started to reallocate their marketing budget for the rest of the year. A little side note, the second campaign wasn't as successful, but I attribute that to not understanding what works or what not works. They didn't have a data plan in place or some kind of social listening plan in place through this first campaign because they didn't know it was going to be so successful. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but it is important that you measure and monitor everything going forward. So the point is, companies are just now starting to figure out how to use mobile devices to increase revenue. P.F. Chang's is a prime example of how you do that by looking at, by them tying it to a Chinese New Year event or some kind of event, and with location information and offering a coupon of value to get people to attend the local P.F. Chang's. There'll be a map and an address and all that, so you just have to click on the ad and it'll take you right there. Okay. If you haven't seen the power of mobile devices in the last couple of years, here's kind of a prime example. This was taken in exactly the same spot. Here's 2005 and 2013. You can see on the upper half there might be 1 or 2 mobile devices that are out, and then in 2013 everybody had a smartphone or mobile device they were using to take pictures. This has only been in the last 8 years. Kind of a dramatic view, isn't it, of what's changed in the last 8 years, and this is why business hasn't caught up with it, because it's all happening so fast, faster than ever before. I mean, we've never had technology that's moved into the mainstream as fast as mobile devices have. And companies got to start learning how to take advantage of that. Right? Like I said, though, 20% of all commerce online is being done on mobile devices. It's going to equalize. It's going to be equal with laptops by 2016. Okay. So I don't know how many of you, and this is more of a commercial example, but how many of you have read the article on Forbes, how Target figured out a teen girl was pregnant before her father did? Well, they did that. Well, let me give you the backstory first. So Target, well, this father was finding it weird that his daughter was getting a lot of coupons and a lot of messages and emails about pregnancy products. Target wasn't saying, hey, you're pregnant, but it was sending information to this father's daughter that made it seem like, you know, she was pregnant. So he went and confronted his daughter. It turns out she admitted, yes, she is pregnant, and the father had a big fit and called Forbes, called the New York Times, called everybody. Said, well, how is Target, you know, understanding that my daughter's pregnant when they've never had a conversation with her about being pregnant? And it turns out that Target was using data, big data, from email, from what she was clicking on online, from what she was buying in the store. They're one of the first companies that have tied all of this together, quite remarkably. So they were able to figure out there wasn't a human involved here. It was all data that was being analyzed, and they would pattern match. They'd say, this is the same. This teen is exhibiting the same kind of behavior that our other mothers that are pregnant are exhibiting. So they did a pattern match, and they tied her with a pregnancy group. So the computer and what was analyzing it basically said, okay, she might be, there's a high probability that she's pregnant, so let's start changing what she sees on our website and changing what email she gets and changing the coupons we send her. And sure enough, Target was right by looking at that behavior, pattern matching, and determining that based on her behavior, she might be pregnant. That's how it happened. Here's kind of a quick example of how it worked. I won't cover this exactly, but they do a lot of information gathering. Again, like the Obama campaign, they put it into one place, and they use these predictive models based on behavior and what they know about other people in that same class of or category, whether it's pregnant women or young men or what have you, and then they start changing what they're sending those particular customers. This is the future. Okay, and the other aspect of this, and kind of the irony, is that, and this is a whole other discussion, is that consumers want to deal with brands they trust, increasingly so, and they're building that trust with brands through social media, because now they can. Before, again, they were broadcast to, now they can interact with it. But brands build trust by knowing more about their consumers. So I raise this issue because it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So there'll be all sorts of privacy considerations, I'm sure. So brands are in a conundrum, right? They need to learn more about you, but that, in some respects, and if you talk to this teen's father, means, you know, getting into an area that is spooky to most people, right? Target will figure out that, you know, I'm pregnant, maybe even before the close family of the teen does. I mean, that's pretty spooky to a lot of people. But consumers want that kind of brand trust. They want a more trusting relationship with the brands, and so something's going to have to give in the future. One way or the other, we're either going to give up a lot of privacy, or we're going to say no to privacy and just give brands a break. They don't have to know us as much as we want them to know them, and we'll find other ways to build trust with that brand. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I like to raise that issue. So let's give you another example. I love examples. Let's talk about the Red Bull story. Most of you probably heard about the Stratos jump from space. I know, because I do this presentation a lot, that there are some people that haven't heard of this. That's okay. So essentially what Red Bull said was, we're going to go out and do this remarkable feat from space, and we hope we get a lot of attention from it. It'll be completely social. Yes, traditional media will cover it, but most of what we're trying to do is build up, remember, those followers. So once you have the followers, you can analyze them, socialize, and mobilize them to do certain things. But before I dive into what the Stratos campaign actually did for Red Bull, because I have the data, let's talk about what Red Bull is. A lot of people think that Red Bull is a beverage company, and they'd be right. But the difference is that Red Bull, in my opinion, they probably make as much money being a media company than they do a beverage company. In fact, I like to say that, you know, they're a media company disguised as a beverage company, because smartly, any event that Red Bull attends, they get the media rights to. So that means any video, any audio, anything done at those events, they can repurpose in any shape, form. They can resell it, and they do. They can use it in their advertising. They can put it out on social media to get more fans and followers. They can use it as content to see what's resonating with their target user base. It's really remarkable what they've done. And they're one of the companies that if you're trying to understand what's happening going forward, this is one company that you should study over and over again. So I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. But first, I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to ask you a question afterwards. Okay, so how much of the product did you see in that particular ad? I mean, how long was the product there and how long was all the footage there? I mean, the product was there for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and the rest of it was media, right? I mean, that media is designed for you to have an emotional connection with the brand so that you follow brand, you stay tuned into the brand, and hopefully you buy their product. So let's go back to the Stratos jump. 8 million users were live on YouTube during the jump. That's 16 times any other previous record on YouTube. So this 8 million people were tuned in live to the jump. Pretty remarkable. Think of that audience that Red Bull kind of garnered. 2,000 tweets per second. In less than 40 minutes, a picture of the jump was shared 29,000 times. They got 216,000 likes and 10,000 comments on Facebook. And a lot of these people were new to Red Bull. They'd never paid attention to Red Bull before. The cost of the jump was about $50 million, and I kind of confirmed that. It was estimated around $50 million. 100 scientists were mobilized. You know, incidentally, that $50 million they believe is going to be worth $1 billion because of all the content, all the fans, all the information, and all the social data that they're going to be able to garner from all the people interacting with them on each of their channels. They added 787,000 subscribers, 425 million views. I mean, you can imagine this is a huge win for them, at least socially. And we'll see over time whether that $50 million investment was worth it. You look at the trusted impressions that are generated. They got overall, across all their channels, 2 million new subscribers. So that's 2 million new subscribers in one day. Well, I think it was over a couple of days. And now they're looking at that information to try to understand who their customer base is or potential customer base is in order to sell more product or to use that information in other ways that generates revenue. So there's 5 key lessons for businesses from the Stratos jump and from Red Bull in general. One is the data mining. Ostensibly, you know, we all tuned in to see this incredible jump. And of course we did. We were entertained. We were in awe. We were in shock. This was a great human accomplishment, especially jumping out of a hot air balloon 26 miles up or whatever it was. You know, but for them, they're very smart, right? I mean, this was kind of a front or a beachhead or a red herring, whatever you want to call it, because what they were really trying to do was to generate awareness about Red Bull. They wanted you to follow them, and they got 2 million new subscribers. And they're going to use all that information to try to understand who their prospective customers are, what makes them tick, how to get them to do certain things for the brand, and to understand them better. Okay, so that was kind of the first lesson, and this doesn't always have to be these big major jumps. I'll get into small business and what you can do going forward. The second was, fuel the communities with content and earning the right to speak to consumers. Sorry about it being cut off here, not sure what happened. But they wanted to add, they wanted to build these communities so that now they can generate additional content from their events from things that they're doing, and they do a lot. Like I said, every sponsorship opportunity that Red Bull has, and they're even putting on their own events now, they own the media rights. So all that content can be fed right back into the communities, the 2 million new subscribers plus the million they already had, and they're going to watch how customers are interacting with that particular content. Well, the only way this was possible was through social media. You could not do this even 5 years ago. So they knew this was an opportune time because so many people were on social networks, especially today, that they could not only do something like this and make it successful and make the $50 million investment worthwhile, is because now they have a tuned-in group of subscribers into the Red Bull brand. Social made this possible. They never would have done this 10 years ago. The other learning that they have is, you've got to understand your audience. You do that through data, and you give the fans what they want. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, especially in retrospect, that Red Bull represents an energy drink. Energy represents, hopefully for most of us, physical activity. Maybe not for all of us. Maybe for some of the writers out there just staying awake. But the point is, they understood their audience, and they gave them what they want, which is a remarkable human accomplishment, and the fans responded in kind. Anyway, so the shift, I think what you got to look at is you've got to understand now what your audience wants, what resonates with them, what I call the interest graph, finding out what is of interest to your particular audience, even if there's not a direct connection to your particular product. But if you understand what they want and you provide that in terms of content, then there will be a closer affinity with your brand and potentially a higher probability that they're going to purchase your product. There's a whole science behind this. And then, of course, like the Obama campaign did, is mobilize people to act. In Red Bull's example, it was sharing. It was getting them to invite other people to watch the Stratos jump on TV. It was kind of sharing all of the videos that were of a result, all the blog posts, all of that. They wanted them to post the content, their thoughts, their feelings, answer poll questions, all about this particular jump, and they were wildly successful. I think there was, like I said, 2,000 tweets per second, 10,000 comments on Facebook. It was a remarkable thing. But okay, so this is where we get into small business, because I'm sure not all of you are big business here. But it wasn't just the big companies that benefited. It was the smaller companies too. Well, and Kit Kat's not, Nestle's not a small company, but this was done immediately after a campaign. So, Nestle, Kit Kat, hey, well done, Felix, have a break, have a Kit Kat. This probably cost them $5 to make. They put it out there on the social networks. It went viral. I think they had 2 or 3 million impressions. That's pretty cool. Any one of us with our business could have done the exact same thing with our product. Might not have gone on to 2 to 3 million people, because Nestle probably has a lot of followers, but we all could have taken advantage of this specific situation and put that out there. Another one is Lego. They created this quick scene. I think they did this within hours of the jump, and this was passed around the internet. I don't remember the sharing statistics, but it went viral around the internet, just this particular picture. Your brand could have done the same thing. Remember during the Super Bowl, most of you seen this, the lights went out. Some sharp cookie over at Oreo went and developed this quick ad. They put it out there. What was everyone doing when the lights went out at the Super Bowl? Everyone was on social media talking to one another about the game, and this was being passed around. And once people saw it, they started sharing it, and I think this was shared over 4 million times and gave Oreo a big boost, at least in brand impressions. I think most people remember this more than they do some of the Super Bowl commercials. Super Bowl commercials cost millions. This costs, again, maybe $5 for somebody to make. Okay, so what I like to say is every brand has an attribute that's potentially larger in life, even if you're ExxonMobil, right? I mean, who gets into oil? Exxon could be sponsoring car clubs. They could be sponsoring car forums online, something to do with the brand, even if it's 2 or 3 times removed, but gives people that are using that particular community or working within that community an affinity to the brand. And then Exxon's got all this information because they're controlling the community, they're curating the community. They have all this information that they can use in order to promote the brand, because oil companies aren't exactly at the highest pinnacle of respect right now. But the point is that every brand has some kind of attribute that they could use in communities, or to develop a community, to work within the community, to connect with people on social media. And so I always like to ask, do you know what impresses your potential customers? And I'm going to show you something that Qualcomm did. Now this is in 2 days. They got 2 million new, 2 million views and a bunch of new subscribers. And they wanted to connect it with their mobile campaign, because Qualcomm's coming out with a bunch of new mobile products. Most of them are hidden within phones, but now that you're going to see, and I can't talk about this too much, but you're going to see a lot more Qualcomm branded mobile products. So they're starting these campaigns that have really nothing to do with mobile. There is a tie to it, and you'll see at the bus stop what that tie is. But this is information that they're creating that's resonating with their target audience. Here we go. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to finish with what you could do today in small business. We talk about what big businesses are doing. So what can big data do for the little guy, the SMBs, the medium-sized companies, people that don't have a lot of money to spend on big data campaigns and understanding what's going on within their industry? There's quite a lot you could do, actually. There's a survey done by YesMail. Do you plan on using real-time data in your 2013 marketing campaigns like Red Bull did? You can see the statistics here, so you can start to see the shift, right? There's a lot more people that are either considering it or they're plan to make greater use of it going forward. And that includes small business as well. So if you look at what I call Moneyball for small business, there's really 4 key aspects of it, and there's quite a few more, but these are the 4 major ones. 1 are having the right tools. 2 is actually knowing how to listen out there to understand what's going on. 3 are working with influential people. This is for small or big organizations. And 4 is kind of tracking that information through the sales funnel to understand what key things are working to increase revenue. That's the goal of our presentation today, is to increase revenue. So for small business, whatever goal that you have, and for us it's revenue, it's got to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, in a certain time frame. That you've got to start with that to understand what are the objectives here, whether it's increased revenue or what have you. You've got to start with that. And then you've got to look at some of the data tools. Brand chats is a great one. There's other tools that you can use, but you've got to have the listening in place and the data analytics in place so that when you start to run these campaigns, you start to experiment, whatever it is that you're going to do in order to meet your objectives, you've got that information at your fingertips to see what's working, what's not working, and identify potential other opportunities to leverage. Maybe You see a lot of negative sentiment about your competitors. Well, there's probably an opportunity for you to step in there. Social listening, this is kind of a critical aspect of that. Once you have the tools in place, you've got to be able to understand how to listen correctly. You know, most companies start out by listening. The best ones then optimize the listening. Where is it important that they tune in? Then they filter, sort, and search based on what they're learning. You know, they're trying to find the right potential prospects and customers. And then they take action. With Red Bull, you know, they're putting out content as action in order for them, for you to buy a beverage or to take some other kind of purchase activity. And then they're refining it. You know, most companies aren't going to the extreme that the Obama campaign did, you know, running 40 different A/B tests. But over time, you need to be able to refine that, the listening, the action, to see what's resonating with your prospective customers that are turning into customers. This is a critical piece of what's going on out there. And then influencers. Now, this might seem out of place. It's really not. There's quite a few people, I guarantee this, that are influential in your industry. It doesn't matter what it is, education, government. I have examples personally from government, business, education, what have you. There are very influential people on certain channels that your customers are on. Like I said, most people are on social networks today. Most of your customers are. So who are the influential people that are resonating with them? You need to identify who those are. And the reason you want to identify who those are, especially as a small business, is because they carry big weight. I like to say, and I've written a book that you know called Socialized, if Oprah held up my book tomorrow, I'd sell 100,000 copies. Well, I will tell you there are influential people, whether it's 1 or 25 or 50 in your industry, that have a similar effect. Maybe it's not Oprah where they'll buy 100,000 of your product, but they have the ability to influence the masses. So why waste money on huge marketing campaigns or even social campaigns if it costs a lot of money? Most of them don't. When you can work with the most influential in your industry to get them to do it. They already have the following. If you build a relationship with them, and this is what my company Evolve does, then they will do the heavy lifting because they've already done it. They've already achieved the following of people that take action once they say to take action, or they recommend a product, or they're seen working with a particular brand. Let them, and this is just one example, there could be 25 influencers in your industry, let them do the heavy lifting. Your goal as a small business is to connect with these people. It's a whole other presentation on this, but you can see the impact if you do it correctly. And then, of course, once you have all this information, once you have all these things in place, you're running social campaigns, even traditional media campaigns, you need to understand what's happening in this particular sales and marketing funnel. And you do that by monitoring and listening to what the conversations are about them. So I got this example in the right-hand corner. This is kind of an analog example of what I'm illustrating here, but you've got kind of a picture of who it is that you're dealing with. You've got information about them. You know where they live. You know what types of letters they're sending out, what types of emails they're sending out, what they're doing on social networks, and you're tying all this together, and you're looking at, okay, if I put out this piece of content, how is that causing them to flee, or is that causing them to go further down the funnel to be a potential customer of mine? And that is what this is all about. If you want to turn all of these leads from social channels, from any channel really, into revenue, you've got to have the data analytics in place. You've got to have the tools in place to see what's working, what's not working. If I leave you with any one thing today, this is where you want to get to. It's incredibly powerful. There's not a lot of companies, big or small, that are doing it, because either there's infighting amongst the groups with all the data, sales doesn't talk to marketing, marketing doesn't talk to sales, or they're not measuring it at all. They're not seeing what's going on about their brand at all, and they're certainly not. They don't have the right people in place to kind of look at the data and say, this is what we need to do more of, and this is what we need to do less of. So, kind of in summary, and I think we're at the end here. You've got to look at all this data. You've got to put it in one place, and you've got to learn from it. And once you learn from it, you've got to refine what you're doing and become what I call a more adaptive business. And right now, if you look at IBM, there's only 10% of in most organizations, they're only looking at 10% of the information that's coming at them. And even of those, is what I found out, they're only looking at that data today. They're not actively archiving this data and looking at it, the past 90 days or 120 days. They're just being more reactionary to the data that they are collecting. So the future is all this information in one spot. Companies are getting really intelligent. Think Moneyball. If you've seen the movie, if you haven't, it's a good movie. Moneyball, where they're using this information to optimize at the lowest cost the ability to find the right customers in the right place at the right time and bring them on as customers. So I don't have time for one last example, but I will cover it real quickly. There's a company called Harmony I work with. They did a big analysis. They figured out who their influencers were because they wanted to raise awareness of the product. They then promoted them, paid it forward. I mean, the key here is with influencers, again, another presentation, is you pay it forward a number of times, you bring them into the fold, you make them more famous. They like that. You might even have to pay them. But their ability to transform your business is tremendous. So this is just one example of a company that used data, used influencers, used the information that they learned about their customers to go from an awareness of 10% within their target market to 90% within 6 months. Their sales went up 30%, and their community grew by 450%. So this is a small company. I think it was, I don't know what their annual revenues are, but it's less than $10 million. So one example of a small business. There's actually many that are out there. So that's all I have. We're at the end of my presentation. So I think we've got time for questions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll make time for anyone that wants to stick around. Thank you very much, Mark. It's interesting, that slide you showed before your last Harmony example, just to share a little bit. I actually wrote an ebook, and one of the things I did right before I started working with Brand Chats was I was talking a lot about what's called actionable social business intelligence. And this is that getting that 10% up to closer to 70, 80, 90%, if not one day 100%, where the data doesn't just go into a funnel and get assimilated, and you can look at it from a historical, like I said, business intelligence perspective, but also it becomes actionable, and people, whether they're in service, support, R&D, tech, can use that data to make better products, have better relationships, and find better opportunities. So it's I like that slide. I might ask you if I can plagiarize it one day, because it really kind of sums up my phrase, your slide. They kind of fit well together. And another thing is, just real quick, is don't want to talk about it a lot, but anyone that doesn't know, because they came in this webinar to hear Mark, this is what we do. Brand Chats focuses on this type of work. So we can talk about that another time if you're interested. For now, if anyone would like, I'd like to take your questions. We will stay open for another 5-10 minutes for anyone that wants to ask any questions. A bunch of people quickly jumped off right at the 11 o'clock hour, since it tells me they had another meeting. But if you have any questions, feel free, and I will start asking them of Mark as soon as I see them come in.
Yeah, or you can ask them if you jumped off on Twitter, Facebook, what have you.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, thank you, Mark, there is an ongoing conversation, and it is at the hashtag #BChats. We are talking now. We've been talking all week. We've been talking all month. We'll be talking into the future. This is our ongoing social business communication hashtag. So if you have any questions, our past attendees, our past hosts have all been a part of this, and we will continue to answer questions as well. Additionally, if you want to ask any questions of Mark now, please feel free. Okay, I've got one question. Understanding that Red Bull made a huge investment, what were the real triggers that made him think it was safe? So what made them think it was a safe time to invest that kind of money in this type of campaign?
No, excellent question, because you don't want to just go out and do something big like that. They had done a bunch of mini campaigns around extreme sports for a long time. And they said, what's the most extreme thing that we can do that will get the attention of our target audience? They know their target audience very, very well. And they came up with this concept of breaking the world record for highest jump out of a hot air balloon. And so they didn't jump into this, pardon the pun, into this big jump from space. They they had learned along the way, and this is, I can't stress and emphasize this enough, you've got to become adaptive in everything you do. They started small, and they realized what resonated with their audience, and they came up with this this big event that they could rally a lot of people around and get their followers that were already committed to Red Bull to invite their followers and their friends and their network to attend this even bigger example of an extreme sport, which was breaking a human record for jumping out of a hot air balloon. So it was an evolution.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, so this is a good question. We actually have two back-to-back that are parallel in this, and maybe these are the two we'll close on because they're both really good questions. We'll probably run out of time after that. If you have a question beyond that, please ask it here, and I will either tweet it at Mark later or we'll get you an answer directly via email. First one is, how do you apply something like Red Bull Jump to socializing business in a more conventional industry? Banking, for example.
Yeah, so, wow, you're going to get me to say something controversial within banking. Okay, so banking, for example. Well, I don't even know if this is legal, but, for banking, I would run some kind of campaign where for every deposit that you make, you're entered in a drawing to win $1 million, and this is over every 6 months or something. And, you get a lot of hype around this because, wow, I mean, my bank potentially is going to give me $1 million for making a deposit. I think you could get a lot of people very, very interested in that. I don't know, again, I don't know if this is legal.
Let's take the legalese out of it and just say, for a daily activity or a potential multi-times a week activity, reward them with something large. So in other words, I hear what you're saying about the legalese, you're not sure about it, but to be clear, a bank could probably give away a prize, right? A bank could probably reward something. So give away something big.
All right, I don't need to disclaim it, you're right. And along the way, you might even want them to socialize the deposit, maybe not the amount, but the fact that they made a deposit and it was one more vote or one more way that they could win this potential prize. And then at the end of it, when you actually do the drawing, you get a lot of your followers, you bring a lot of attention to this, when you're choosing the winner of this deposit every 3 to 6 months or whatever it is. So that's how I would do it, and this is just off the cuff, right? I mean, I would have to sit down and think about it. But that would be one way that I think you could do something similar that wouldn't cost that much money.
Now, giving away $1 million would cost a lot of money.
Well, $1 million, yeah, I'm just throwing numbers out. Depends on the bank. It wouldn't be a lot.
That piggybacks this next question, which is a little different, but has some similarities. How do you, the two references here, the Oreo commercial and the Red Bull. It said, like Oreo and Red Bull, how do you create a viral campaign if your product isn't as well known?
Yep. Well, the way you get it to be known is you hijack everybody else's campaigns, or that there's an impending event coming up, and you get on top of it like Oreo did. Oreo didn't spend any money on that. They just floated that ad out during an opportune time during the Super Bowl. But what about, let's take example the meteor showers that were out there. Why weren't there organizations that were, I use an auto example. Why didn't an automobile company come out with some Space Invaders type image or video that were shooting these meteors out of the sky? Anything to kind of take advantage of huge current events that are well beyond the brand. Leverage bigger things that are going on, like the Super Bowl. You don't have to pay anymore to leverage what's going on in the Super Bowl because you have social media, social networks. So take big events and attach your brand to them and let them go through your social networks and everybody else's social networks. Be cute, be clever, be funny, and you'll see brand recognition go up immediately for next to nothing.
Great. Well, that was the last question we had right now. Mark, thank you again. This was fantastic. Even for someone like myself who's seasoned, it was eye-opening. Really enjoyed the presentation. Again, anyone, if you have any questions, please let us know. Also, just a reminder to everyone that attended, we will be emailing you a link to download Mark's book for free. So you get a free copy of Socialize. Mark will be around the country. I'm sure he'll be alerting people via Twitter as well. Mark, if you want to just verbally tell me your Twitter handle, is it Socialized?
No, it's Mark with a K, Fidelman, Fidelman. So it's Mark Fidelman, at Mark Fidelman.
And I will be tweeting that out and thanking you again.